Hello, my name is Justin, also known as the Galactic Microbe. I was involved in the last MFC challenge and I did a science fair project about the MFC earlier this year. Here is my microbial fuel cell presentation. For this MFC challenge, I decided to investigate how temperature affects the amount of electricity produced by a MFC. I did this because I learned that bacteria growth is affected by the environmental temperature. I assisted in the last MFC challenge and I saw the teams change the additives in the MFC. I wanted to do something different, so I decided to change the operating temperature of the MFC to try and generate the most electricity. When building the MFCs, I prepared the mud for all units at the same time. This reduced the number of manipulated or independent variables. If I had prepared the mud separately, the volume of water added into the mud might be different. I also made sure that I added the same amount of mud to each MFC. In the picture, you can see that all the mud is at the same level. For my experiment, I used 4 MFCs. I received one of them from participating in the contest, and I had 3 MFCs from my other experiments. I put one of the used MFCs in my living room where the temperature was about 20 degrees Celsius. This MFC was my control. Next, I put another used MFC in my basement where the temperature was about 16 degrees Celsius. I put my last used MFC outside on my porch where the temperature changed throughout the day. Finally, I put my new MFC in my living room too. I wanted to see if the different equipment affected the amount of electricity produced. Here is my MFC that I decorated. I tried to make my MFC look like a satellite with an LED blinking at the top. On the sides, I added solar panels, and in the background, there is a picture of space that I spray painted by myself. NASA was planning on taking these MFCs to space, and this fit very well with my space theme. During this challenge, I had some difficulties with the MFC placed outside. On days when it rained, I was afraid the raindrops might damage the hacker board. To fix this, I created a small enclosure to protect it. This would be like a spacesuit for an astronaut when they are out in space. As you can see in the picture, I added holes to the enclosure to keep the temperature inside and outside of the enclosure the same. Through this challenge, I learned a few interesting facts. I learned how a MFC works and the best temperature to put an MFC in. I also learned how it can be used in space and on Earth. On this slide, I will briefly explain how a MFC works. Bacteria in the soil near the anode eat nutrients and poo electrons. These electrons are transferred onto the anode through 3 different ways. The first way is through mediated transfer, where another biomolecule is used to transfer it. The second way is through nanowire transfer, where they use their tails to connect to the anode. The last way is through direct transfer, where they directly touch the anode. After this, the electrons flow into the blinker circuit, which makes the LED blink. They then travel to the cathode, where they react with oxygen to make water. This completes the electrical circuit. I learned that bacteria double in population every 30 minutes in the danger zone. I found this information from the United States Department of Agriculture. This zone ranges from 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same as 4 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. I also learned that NASA was planning on using these to power long space travel. Right now, they are testing how bacteria will grow in space. Did you know that the US spends 5% of their electrical bills on wastewater treatment? In the future, we could use MFCs to convert wastewater treatment plants into power plants. The bacteria could eat all the nutrients in the wastewater and produce electricity in the process. In the graph, it shows the amount of electricity produced over time. The green and the blue line show the MFCs in the living room. The red line shows the MFC in the basement. We can see that the MFCs in the warmer temperature produce more electricity than the MFCs in the colder temperature. Notice how the MFC place outside, the yellow line, produced no electricity during the whole contest. This is probably because the temperature in the evening always dropped a lot, halting any bacteria growth. The control MFC produced more electricity than Unit 4 at the start. Some remaining bacteria could have been on the anode, which could have given it a small head start. Towards the end, both MFCs in the living room produced almost the same amount of electricity, likely because the surrounding temperature was the same. After all of this, I can conclude that temperature does affect the amount of electricity produced by a MFC. I can also conclude that warmer temperatures help the MFC produce more electricity, and changing temperatures will affect the amount of electricity produced by a MFC. Here are my references. Thank you for listening to my presentation. This is Justin, the Galactic Microbe, and I'm signing off.